NFL is finally back, officially week 1. And of course, we have to bring in Locked On Panthers' very own Julian Council to break it all down.
Yep.
Panthers getting off to a start that has been consistent with the last couple of years, we can say, especially just under Bryce Young so far. So I wanted to get your first impressions of this week 1 opening loss.
Yeah, first impressions, Danielle, is yikes. We're back at it again with the Panthers getting off to a horrendous start and embarrassing themselves and the fan base in one foul sweep. But it is just week 1, which no one wants to hear that
Right.
because they haven't been to the playoffs since 2017. And last year, they get blown up 47-10. The year before that, they lose. This is now, I believe, 4 straight years possibly, of starting off 0-1. And it's a trend that has been where Carolina has not played often in the preseason, which has a lot of fans wondering, are they prepared for the season? Even Dave Canales was asked after the game, what happens? What's the disconnect? And he can't answer that. So that is a problem for Carolina. So for them to come out and play the way that they play today, it is alarming. But again, just 1 week.
Right. Like we were just talking about, half of the teams in the NFL have to lose each week.
Sure.
So, at the end of the day, it's not the worst odds. But, of course, when you're looking at a game, focus is going to be on the quarterback. And coming into the season, everyone was looking at Bryce Young, hoping he's going to be taking that step forward, especially with how this team ended last year. People think maybe he turned a corner.
Certainly.
And he sure may have. But we saw what he did in this week 1, and it did not indicate necessarily that there was that much forward progression in terms of his development. He showed a lot of frustration on his face visibly. He threw the helmet, things like that as well, and spoke about it a little bit afterwards in his press conference. What were your takeaways from Bryce's performance? I know you had a couple notes about him in terms of turnovers and interceptions as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of emotion that we really haven't seen from Bryce as starting quarterback here in Carolina when he has had a lot of games like today, unfortunately. And yeah, you mentioned the numbers I put out there over on social media. Bryce Young now, in his 3 week 1 starts, has 6 interceptions and 1 fumble. 6 of those giveaways have resulted into points for the opponent, and that's 30 total points across the last 3 games in week 1. So 10 week 1 against the Falcons in his rookie debut, 10 last year against New Orleans, and 10 today against Jacksonville. And that's just not winning football. When your quarterback is throwing 2 interceptions and fumbling, you're not going to have success, whether it's week 1, week 7, week 12, the playoffs, if they ever got there. That's just not what you want to see. And it's disappointing because you know that Bryce Young is capable of playing so much better than he played today. But we also, unfortunately, know he's capable of doing this. So I asked heading into the season, who is the real Bryce Young? Is it something in between what we saw weeks 1 and weeks 2 last year to what we saw in the final 9 weeks? Is it what we saw today? I don't know, but the consistency has to be there if Carolina is going to invest in him after the season, whether it be the 5th-year option or long-term. And what you saw today, that is alarming, especially that this is a trend where, whether it's been with Dave Canales or Frank Reich for that 1 year, he does not get off to a good start.
Right.
Therein, the Panthers don't get off to a good start.
Yeah, and you mentioned that before. The people had that term Bama Bryce and wanted to see if Bama Bryce is going to be back. And of course, he would love to get back to the level of play that he was playing when he was dominating in college. But I think something interesting about Bryce is he's someone who's very attuned in his emotions and very he keeps his mental state, it seems, really clear when he's speaking to the media and everything out there. He talked about that frustrating moment when it was at 4th and 1 and he ended up airing it out. I think a lot of people had a lot of head scratches when they saw him. He had a couple of options and he ended up just throwing it away. And he talked about that one after the game too and said, it was a frustrating moment for me. It was more of a lapse of judgment. Do you see his confidence shaken at all, or do you think, hey, it's week 1 and he can continue to be that confident Bryce Young in terms of his mentality?
No, I'm not concerned about his confidence at all. That was an interesting play. Certainly, you've seen that happen before. The only times I've truly seen that happen is in college. I've never really seen an NFL quarterback, even if it's week 1, understood, not fighting for that extra yard to be able to get that first down. And that's a disappointing part of it. Mark Schlereth, who was on the Fox broadcast, and mentioned that JT Sanders was coming across the middle, was going to be open potentially for a touchdown, and for Bryce just to effectively give up on the play. I don't know how Dave Canales felt about that or how the team feels about it, but I'm not saying he quit on the play. But when you just throw it away and you don't at least try to scramble, where he had a lot of effective scrambles. And yes, there were guys right there in front of him. You want to see him go out there and try to fight for that yard, fight for his team, especially in a situation where you're starting the 3rd quarter, you desperately need to get points, get off to a good start in that second half. And then just for that to be the response in that situation, that's disappointing to see. But I don't think that his confidence is shaken at all. It's just one of those things where he didn't see it, and he's like, okay, let me just get rid of the ball, not get hit. And, well, didn't really get to live to fight another down as they had to turn the ball over on downs at that point in time.
This is not to negate that there were some positives that we did see out of him, of course, connecting with some of the weapons that he has. One of them, notably T-Mac.
Yeah.
We know that Bryce was instrumental in bringing T-Mac into Charlotte. And they had, five connections for 68 yards together, T-Mac in his NFL debut. What are your first impressions? He was so close on a couple of plays. He had that one-handed catch that was almost crazy, but
Absolutely.
It obviously turned out to be a no play because of a penalty that was called and then also a touchdown that was dropped. So just impressions of what he did out there today.
I'm going to need the NFL replay office to go back and look at that and see if they can retroactively give him the reception if that indeed was a reception. But yeah, I thought overall McMillan was open a lot of the times and was able to connect on a couple of those throws across the middle on third downs, which was a good thing to see, especially for a guy who they selected 8th overall, being his rookie debut against a solid, not great Jacksonville secondary. And you mentioned, it wasn't just that play. There was a play later on in the game after the J.C. Horn interception where good defensive play, maybe a penalty, could have been a touchdown there. There's another time when Bryce Young got hit, and Mark Schlereth on the broadcast had mentioned that it looked like they were trying to target McMillan down the field for what could have been a touchdown. So if you're looking for any sort of positives from today, it would be that. Running the ball wise, okay. If you look at the running backs, maybe not as much, but in totality, any day where you're over 100 yards rushing in the NFL is a solid day for that rushing attack. But yeah, there's not a ton of great things to take away offensively. But if you want to take anything away, look at the rookie Tedero McMillan, and you can see a guy who can absolutely be a star and that X spot in this offense at wide receiver.
And one of the notes from this Panthers team, of course, was that continuity on the O-line. Of course, Ike Ekwonu was not out there as he's still recovering from that appendectomy. Some questionable snaps from center position from Austin Corbett. But overall, they seem to hold their ground and do what they needed to do. It shows like they're taking a bit of a step forward as a unit, would you say?
Yeah, and continuity is so important. And rarely do you see in the NFL, and this was mentioned plenty of times throughout the offseason, everybody from an offensive line unit coming back, having all 9 of their top guys. And there have been some injury concerns as Robert Hunt had the foot injury last week, was able to play in the game. Damian Lewis missed a lot of time throughout training camp and preseason, so maybe they missed continuity there as far as that goes. Then, of course, Ike Ekwonu not being available, but it's not like Josh Nijman hasn't started. He started 3 games last year, mainly on the right side at right tackle for Taylor Moton when he was injured, but you had Brady Christensen if you needed to go to him, and I thought Josh Nijman played a fine game, and Dave Canales even brought that up prior to his film review that we'll do after the game or when he gets back home to Charlotte tonight. But I thought overall they played fine. The concern, though, is what's going on with the snap surf Austin Corbett.
Right.
I'll be honest, Danielle. I've never had this many people calling to bench a center after week 1. And I get the Panther fan base is frustrated, but that is something that I had never thought I would see. I don't think they're going to bail on Corbett after 1 week. I don't know what the timing communication was with all of that. Neither of those bad snaps ever resulted into a catastrophic play, which certainly could happen, especially with the stature of the quarterback they have in Bryce Young. I'm sure they'll get that cleaned up. But that was one thing where you're like, what's going on there?
I think it's Panthers fans and all NFL fans who have just been itching to talk football for the first time in months.
Absolutely.
That, they got to have something to complain about. But that's all right. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball because we'll let that do the talking first. But we around here at WCNC Charlotte have been using the term historically poor defense in regards to their season last year. I think numbers-wise that backs up that saying as well. So this was the first time that we've been seeing this defense back out on the field. What were your impressions on that side of the ball?
Looked like the same old Panthers defense, unfortunately. And I know there was a lot of consternation about bringing back Ejiro Evero for the final year of his deal as Panthers defensive coordinator. And you looked and saw that out there today as for the 7th straight game, dating back to the end of last season, the Panthers have allowed at least 200 yards rushing to their opponent. That is not winning football in the NFL. Certainly, they won a couple of those games last year, but if they continue to have this trend, that will be a problem. And it's alarming because they brought in Turk Wharton on the first day of the league negotiating period to stop this. They brought in Bobby Brown III to stop this as well. Christian Roseboom coming over from L.A., Patrick Jones coming over from Minnesota. They were all supposed to be a part of improving the run defense along with Trevon Merrick, and we saw the same kind of issues we saw a year ago, especially on that 71-yard run from Travis Etienne. Great block by the tight end and great scheme by Liam Cohen, their head coach and play caller, where one of them gets taken out of the play, but then Merrick's not there to fill the hole. Then Nick Scott, who certainly had plenty of these moments last year, was not able to make the tackle. And if he does, it's a 12, 13-yard gain.
Right.
He doesn't. It's 71-yard gain. And on that touchdown drive, all 91 yards that Jacksonville had were on the ground. Like, that is unacceptable on every level for this to continue. And Dave Canales has asked plenty about this last year. Why is Gerald Vero still your DC? Do you feel confident about the scheme he's running? He said he likes the scheme. So if it's not the scheme, it has to be the personnel. They've added new personnel, and yet you got the same result, at least just for 1 week. But that is something that is very concerning to me, because that standard that has been set in the past, especially at the linebacker position, has not been met as of this moment in time, dating back the last couple of years of Ejiro Vero as their DC. So, yeah, that doesn't get cleaned up. Whether Bryce Young holds on to the football or not, they will not be a good football team.
But we do also know they did bring in some rookies on the defensive side. You mentioned the linebacker, the two edge rushers with Princely Umenmielen and Nick Scott, and we're going to see them continue to develop as well. It's a defense that's meshing, like you just mentioned, a ton of new names on this group who are here to bolster it, and that's what you'd, of course, want to see during your preseason and during those preseason games.
Yeah.
And that brings up that other argument when people were wondering, did the Panthers play their starters enough during the preseason? I think every team in the NFL wants to know if they got the most out of their preseason. Now looking back at it retroactively, do you like how the Panthers handled their preseason games in terms of using their players and their starters?
Well, I'll say this. San Francisco didn't play a lot of their starters, and they won today.
Sure.
Los Angeles, Sean McVay said from day one, I'm never going to play Matthew Stafford. He's had a bunch of injury concerns heading into the year, and they won today. So I just think it's a way for people to try to explain what happens. I'm not necessarily saying that it's right or wrong, but to me, you got to go out there and make plays and execute. Like, you have so much practice time going back to the spring, all throughout the summer, to prepare and be ready to go week one. And Dave Canales looked at what he did last year, and he recognized, I need to change things up. And he had the starters play 2 series against Cleveland in week 1, 2 series in week 2 against Houston, and they also had joint practices. And I think a big thing about that, because they talk about they get a lot of work out of that, fans aren't there to see it. So for them, they're not able to tangibly understand what has the work that they got in, what maybe has been improved upon. They only get to see glimpses of what they do in the preseason. So that then makes them think that, okay, they didn't get any work done at all. Well, that's just not the truth at all.
Sure.
This team just has to do a better job of executing. I don't know what the disconnect is between all the positive things that Dave Canales said about the work that they got done to them getting out there in week 1 and certainly not looking prepared against another team in Jacksonville that wasn't a good football team last year. Just like you couldn't stop anybody defensively, had problems offensively, questions about their quarterback, and they looked competent today while you didn't. So I don't think it's the preseason. I just think that whatever the preparation aside from that they're doing is just not working. And I'm going to tell people too, as long as they have 2 joint practices, I just don't imagine they're going to ever have a day where Dave Canales here in Carolina is going to play the starters an extended amount of time in the preseason. And if someone gets hurt, like Cam Newton back in 2019, are people going to be complaining about them playing the preseason? Or are they going to be like, oh, well, you got one of our top players hurt? Because you can't have it both ways. That's the only thing I'm going to say.
There is no winning. But
no.
Unless
you win in week 1, then people won't complain.
Unless you're a part of that 50% of the NFL who does win in week 1. Julian, I want to challenge you. If you are Dave Canales or any of the Panthers players, as you're flying back from Jacksonville right now, what is the one emotion or word that is sticking in your head as you're getting ready for another week in the NFL?
I mean, the emotion is just we're moving forward.
Sure.
You have 16 more games, 17 more weeks left in the regular season. There is plenty of time to fix what happened today. And I think they're a much better football team than what they showed. And I know no one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear it's just week 1. They can come back next week, and they got to go on the road against Arizona, a franchise that they have dominated in recent years, but it's a different season, different team, all of that. But you got to move forward. You can't look at what happened today and think, oh, well, that's it. We're not going to be any good this season. I think they get back to work, obviously on Monday with film review, and they'll have Tuesday off. They'll be right back out there in the practice field on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I think this team will be ready to go next Sunday against Arizona. If they're not, they're 0-2 again, then it's the same kind of process. You got to take it week to week. I know it's very difficult for fans to think about that just because of what, of course, has gone on in recent years, but it's a week-to-week league. Your team can look terrible one week. You looked at last year against Dallas. Looked like they couldn't protect Bryce Young. The next week, went in overtime against Arizona. You have those weeks against Kansas City, against Philadelphia, and then you have that Dallas game and Tampa game. So it's a week-to-week league. It changes every single week. They just got to get back to their process, be able to get healthy, and actually execute. And I think that they'll show far better than what we saw today.
All right, yeah. So we will see what week 2 brings for the Carolina Panthers,
Yes,
as you mentioned, facing Arizona before they come back for their home opener in just a couple weeks at this point against Atlanta. So Julian Council with Locked On Panthers. Thanks for watching.